Hi, it's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and I'm here today to share a tutorial for a fun bag. I know a lot of you might be new here if you came from your Sew Sampler box from Fat Quarter Shop, so welcome to my channel where we share all things A Quilting Life. Just a few notes: if you are here from Fat Quarter Shop, you will be able to use the fabrics in your Sew Sampler box to cut the squares for the bag. You'll also be able to use that fabric to make your bag bottom. The only thing you'll need extra is fabric for binding and also for the lining. But I'm going to show you how to make this bag from start to finish. There are a few different options that I'll be talking about as we go, as far as materials that you can use in between your lining and your outer fabric, and also strapping. I did use 1-inch polypro strapping that I covered in fabric, but there are a lot of really fun strappings on the market now that are already printed. You might be able to find something that you wouldn't have to cover for your straps. But anyway, welcome to our channel, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's get started. I wanted to make a charm pack bag that would require minimal cutting, trimming knowledge. So basically, if you can sew a straight line, I think you'll be able to make this bag. What you need are some 5-inch squares. You can get a charm pack. You're going to need 24. Or you can cut squares from a dessert roll, like was in the Fat Quarter Shop Sew Sampler box. So just cut 24 squares. You will need some fabric for the bottom of the bag. You will need 1/8 of a yard for the bag bottom. You will need 1/2 yard of your lining fabric. That's for the inside of the bag. And then you will also need 1/4 yard for straps and bindings. Other supplies that you will need will be 1-inch polypro strapping. We are going to cover this so it's a little bit prettier. And then you will need something to make your bag, give it some body. I'm going to use Soft and Stable from by Annie. You can also use fusible fleece, and you can also use batting. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to, as I said, you're going to need 24 charm squares. You're going to put them into 2 groups of 12. And you're just going to lay them out. You're going to go 4 across. And I'm just kind of playing with this. 4 across and 3 deep. And just kind of mix up your prints and patterns so that you don't have, you know, greens right on top of each other or whites right on top of each other. I probably wouldn't use that one because it's a solid. Maybe I'd put that there. Let's see, we need an orange. I also didn't use pink, so I'm going to put that there. So just switch them around until you're happy, and you're going to sew these together, all 4 of these, all 4 of these, all 4 of these, and then you're going to sew the whole thing together. And after you've done that, you are going to sew a 4-inch by 18.5-inch rectangle to the bottom of your bag bottom fabric. So in that case, also, I would switch a couple things around. Just make sure that if your bag bottom print is in your bag, that it's not on the bottom where it's going to be touching. Something else I like to do is I like to, see, I just like switch these around. I like to make sure that my bag front and my bag back, you can make them exactly the same if you want, or you can make them different. It's all up to you. Then you're going to, after you've sewn this all together, you're going to put it on top of your Soft and Stable with your lining fabric on the bottom. And I've already done that and had mine quilted, so I'm just going to show you my actual bag front. Just a couple notes about the quilting too. You don't have to have somebody quilt it for you. I did, for the sake of time, take this over to a friend and my friend Vicki and had her quilt it for me. But you could also just do really simple straight lines. So you're going to make 2 of these. One will be your bag front and one will be your bag back. Okay, so after you've done that, you are going to trim this so that it is 16.5 inches tall from here to here and 18 inches wide. Okay, and the one thing that you want to make sure of when you trim is that this section measures 3.5 inches from this seam to the end. I just want to show you with the ruler 3.5 inches right from that seam line to the end. And we're going to make sure that it is 16.5 inches tall. And then we are 18 inches wide. Okay, so again, you're going to make 2 of these. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to cut a 3¼ inch square from both sides of the bottom. This is so that we can box our corners. And the way I do that is I just use a ruler and go to the 3¼ inch. 3¼ inches there and 3¼ inches here. And I love these clover chalk marker contraptions. You could also just use a pencil. You're going to be cutting it away, but I usually just mark it so that I can see it. And I'm going to do that on the other side too, but I am just going to cut that out. And you can even use the piece that you cut from the first side for your and again, this light is kind of hard to see on my yellow. I probably could have used a darker. Make sure I get it. Okay, so you're going to do that for your bag front and your bag back. The next thing you want to do is sew 1/8 inch around the edge of your whole project, just to kind of keep things from pulling away or coming unquilted. And I'm going to run over to the sewing machine and do that really quick. Okay, so back from the sewing machine, I did just go 1/8 inch all the way around just to keep that together. I don't think I had turned it over and showed you the back. So the next thing we're going to do is bind the top of our bag. So we are going to use a 2.5 inch by 19 inch rectangle of our binding fabric. And you're going to take it and you are going to press it in half and then take it over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew it on the bag back. So the folded edge is down here, and we're going to use about a 3/8 inch seam on this actually, because I made the binding a little bit wider. And then we're going to pull it over to the front. And I'm actually, you know, if you watch my videos, I always hand bind my quilts, but I'm actually going to machine bind this. So I'm going to do it on the back, and the reason for that is that when I come to the front side, I will be able to make sure that my stitching is really nice on the front of the bag. So I'm going to go do that and come right back. Okay, I'm back and I actually just sewed the binding piece to the back. I did go ahead and press it, but I wanted to show you what I used to keep this. I just love clips. Pins are the worst for something like this, but I'm going to go ahead and clip it all the way across. And then like I mentioned before, I am going to sew on the front side of the bag so that I can get my stitch just really nice and pretty on the front. And I'm actually just not really going to worry too much about the back. Okay, so got this clipped, and now I'm going to take it back over to the sewing machine and just finish off the binding. And you'll notice that these are overlapping. That's okay. Now we're going to trim them in a minute. Okay, so binding is sewn on the front. I am going to go ahead and trim the edges now. And the next thing we are going to do is make our straps. And I mentioned that I really like to use this Polypro strapping. It does come in a wider format if you want a wider strap. This, I'm just calling this my market bag. I'm going to leave it in the car. You know, if I go to Trader Joe's and I need a bag, I take this in. It'll be a nice size. But I am just going to use the smaller straps. Okay, it's time to cover our straps. There are a couple of different things that you can do. First of all, I cut this 1-inch Polypro strapping into two 30-inch lengths for my straps. You might want to adjust that. If you do, just be sure to cut your strap fabric an inch longer than you cut your strapping. So a couple different ways, as I mentioned. If you want to cut this 2.5 inches wide by 1 inch longer than your strap, you can make a tube. You can turn it inside out. It can be kind of a pain. They do have these little tube turners that are very effective, but I actually didn't want to mess with that today. I've turned so many things inside out, I feel like, for the past little while, that I just wanted to use a more simple method. So I cut my fabric at 3 inches wide, and I'm just going to kind of like demonstrate. I've actually got a finished strap here that I made that we're going to use to put on our bag, but I'm just going to kind of demonstrate what I did. So you're going to need, as I mentioned, a 3-inch wide piece of your strap fabric covering, you know, and then you're going to, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to press in 1/2 inch. Let me move this so this is easier to see. You're going to press in 1/2 inch on each long edge. And then on one of the sides, you're going to kind of open it up, press in 1/2 inch, and just press that all. So see, I pressed that 1/2 inch, and then I repressed my sides down. And what I do is you're going to put the strapping in. And you can press this again. And then you're going to fold this part of it up. And it should come just right, really close to that edge. And you might have to like kind of finagle it a little bit. But then we're going to use our Wonder Clips again. And you're just going to clip your entire strap together. You're going to do the same thing. It looks like I have this strapping a little long. But we're going to do that same thing. We're going to press that under on the other end. So we want both of our strap ends finished. And just make sure that all those raw edges. So anyway, if you want to do it the traditional way and make a tube and turn in it, you can, but this is just another way to cover your strap so that you don't have to do that. And once you have it all, you know, nice the way you like it, take it over to the sewing machine, start sewing on one of these short ends that are open. So about 1/8 of an inch away, and get this open part encased first, and just sew all the way around. So we sewed all on all 4 sides. but start on those, get those open edges covered first. Okay, so you are going to do that, and then you're going to make 2 of these straps for your bag. Okay, now it's time. We're going to actually attach the straps to our bag. We are going to work on the back side, on the lining side, I should say, and you are going to measure in 6.5 inches from the side, and we're going to draw a line that goes 3 inches down. So 6.5 inches from the side and 3 inches down. And I'm just going to use my chalk again. We're going to do the same thing over here. 6.5. And we're going to go down 3 inches. And if you measure the distance between those 2 lines, it should be right, let me get this so you can see the ruler markings. It should be right at 5 inches between those 2 lines. So 5 inches between your 2 lines. And then we are going to take our straps, and we are, sometimes my little chalk line, I'm going to use my ruler. 1, 2, 3. So again, that is going to be on the outside of that line. And again, we're going to use these clips just to keep it in place. And make sure that your strap doesn't get twisted. And you will do the same thing with the other line. Just seam. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start up at the top. I'm actually going to kind of use that seam line that I have already from when I made my straps. I'm going to just sew there, over, up, over. I'm actually going to come down and I'm going to put a little square down here with an X in it just to give it a little more stability. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I've actually got this completed for my other bag, which you haven't seen yet, but which I have ready to go. So you can tell that, you know, the stitching shows a little bit from the front. There's my X. There's another X here. So I just sewed that down. So it's really sturdy and stable. So just stitched in that line across, down. You might even want to go and do this twice. I think I actually might go back and do this twice when I sew this one, just so there's a little bit more stability. So, okay, I'm going to go to the sewing machine. I'm going to attach these straps, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to start putting this together. Okay, handles are all attached for bag front and bag back. Just did want to note, if you want to, I just kind of eyeballed these X's that I had you sew. But if you want to go ahead and draw them with either a piece of chalk or some type of marking pencil, you could, if you want to get them absolutely exact. Also, make sure that your straps line up pretty well. That should be fine as long as you did have that 5 inches in between. That'll make everything work together. Okay, we're now going to sew. There are 5 seams left. They're all going to be bound. It's going to make for a really nicely finished bag. We need to sew our bottom seam, our 2 side seams, and we will box these 2 corners. And we're going to do that by putting right sides together. We're going to start with the bottom seam, and we've got 5 bindings over here. They're 1.5 inches wide, and they're about 1 inch longer than the seams that they need to encase. We're going to start with the bottom. We're going to take the 1.5 inch by 12 inch binding, and I just have those right sides together. And again, these clips are just perfect. You're going to clip it And then you're going to head over to the sewing machine and you're going to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam and press out toward the binding, and I'll come back and show you the next step after that. Okay, back from the sewing machine. I sewed that with a 1/4 inch seam. I pressed it out toward the binding. So you can tell we have a bag bottom seam. Now we're going to reinforce that as we bind it. So you're just going to kind of finger fold that over. Just finger. And the other thing you're going to do is you're going to bring that end over, just kind of like we did when we covered the elastic. And these clips are, just make it, you really do need, I'm going to make sure this is actually going to be enclosed in the boxed corner seam, so I probably don't need to worry as much, but I'll go ahead and do this end now. And then just continue. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this back to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew again, and I'm going to go through all 4 layers now. So I'll be going through both bag bodies and this top layer, which is actually folded, so that's actually 2 layers there of the binding. And then I'll also be sewing through down here. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that, and then I'm going to do the same thing before I come back with the sides. So the same exact thing. I'm going to take this, in fact, I'm actually going to clip this right now so you can see. And I actually will, it probably doesn't matter, but I'm just going to keep it so that I started them all on the same side. So line up those tops of the bag. I'm going to clip this. Okay, so, and I'm actually going to get this one ready and sew that all at the same time. So I'm going to sew my final seam on the bottom, and I'm going to go sew my sides. I'm going to fold them. I'm going to do exactly like I did on the bottom, and then I'll come back and show you what we do with the corners. Okay, I am back. I finished the bottom. I finished both sides. I actually went ahead and did one of the boxed corners. I'm going to show you how to do the other one, and then our bag is going to be done. So what you do is you just pull that out, and I actually make sure, you know, for the first one it won't matter, but when I do the second one, I make sure that I fold the bottom seam the same way that it was folded for that, and I fold the side seam the opposite. That way we don't have them right on top of each other with all that bulk. So you see, one is going one way, one is going the other way, so that that can stay nice and flat. And I'm actually gonna just kind of like clip that in the middle. And you just make sure that these are all even. We're gonna use this last binding piece. This one might be a little larger than you need it. We can trim the sides as needed, but I'm going to put that right there and just clip. So excited because it's almost done. Okay, I'm going to go back to the sewing machine. I'm going to do exactly what I've done before. I'm going to sew that 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to press it. I'm going to turn it around, flip it, and finish the edge like that, and I'll come back and we'll turn our bag inside out, or right side out. Okay, so it's all finished. Got both of the corners boxed. Here's our bottom seam that we actually started with first, and our 2 side seams. So everything is completely finished on the inside. So I'm just gonna I'm just turning it right side out. I like to just press out those corners. So we've got our bag. I'm calling this a medium. Just for comparison, my raspberry summer tote is just a little bit shorter, just for size comparison. But honestly, just a really great size bag, and achieved my goal. I wanted to do something that I could make with a charm pack and not have to trim anything down. One last thing I did want to show, because we didn't do a shot over at the sewing machine, was that a stiletto is super helpful while you are sewing this, because you can keep that fabric, you know, you have it clipped and while you're sewing, and as you remove those clips, you know, there's a tendency for the fabric to shift, but you can actually just use that stiletto to hold that fabric down while you guide it through the sewing machine, you know, and as I take a clip off, I will just actually hold where that clip was with the stiletto. Just another tip that I thought would be helpful while you're sewing. So that's it for the Charm Pack bag tutorial. I hope you enjoyed making it. I'm super excited to add this to my arsenal of bags that I can use for quilting and for non-quilting, even just going to the grocery store, as I mentioned earlier. We will have everything linked in the description below, the products that I mentioned and that you saw on the video. And also we will have a link to my blog where there is a free PDF that you can print out that has all the measurements and everything. So I know I mentioned a lot of those throughout the tutorial, but some of them I might have missed here and there. So we've just got it all on a little printable that you can download from my website. If you enjoyed today's tutorial, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, tell a friend, and thanks so much for stopping by.